Yes, and we want to really a huge thanks to Tony here, who not only runs the library, but through the library sponsorship, he is helping have this forum tonight. So, so we thank you, because we all care about this school so much in our little town of Veta. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to begin by having each of the candidates introduce themselves. We've asked them 5 facts, 1 minute. Okay, so they each are going to tell us 5 either, well, whatever they want to say about themselves in 1 minute. We will then go on. We have 3 questions that they've all seen. They'll have a minute to answer. Are we going to be really tough on them if they go over? No, but we want to leave the 3rd part after they answer those 3 questions will be to take questions from anybody on the floor. Our goal is to be out of here by 8:30 at the very latest. Okay, so love meetings that start on time, but we had a little raggedy beginning because we did. Anyway, so for those candidates that are not here, I can see their names on these twisted little things. I will read their answers that they have submitted. 3 of the 4 people who are not here have written answers for all of these different questions. And we've seated everybody in the order that they appear on the ballot. Just some of us need visual aids, and I in particular. So we're going to try and fit all of this into a, it's 10 pounds of sugar in a 5-pound bag. But the good news is that we have such a wealth of citizens that are interested in wanting to run for the board. So let's all right. So I'm gonna start you in one way, and then I'm gonna have you answer that in the other way, and then I'm gonna divide you in the middle and go around, divide you in the middle and go around. But I'll keep track of all of that, I hope. So let us hear, tell us your name, speak real loud because we don't have any mics here. And am I out of the way, because we want to make sure we are focused on the candidates. So can we begin here? And it might help to have people stand up when they answer. Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. So 5 facts, 1 minute.
Are you going to ask the question, or?
The first one is 5 facts, 1 minute.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. My name is Frances. I go by Cass Mason. And the reason I ran for the school board is I've been in education for over 40 years. And I started out as a teacher, went to a counselor, I became an administrator, went to the district office, and then I went back to counseling again, because that allowed me to work with kids who were in kindergarten. I'd worked with everybody else, so I thought I got to get in with them too. I believe that this position for me is that there's several people to listen to. Students, parents, the board itself. And my job is, as a counselor, is to hear those things, listen to those things, and try to come up with solutions. You might not be able to please everybody all the time, but you certainly can give them the courtesy of listening to their point of view, and you can listen to mine. And I think that is where the rubber meets the road, is when you can listen and you can hear what they need, and they can listen to hear what you need. So,
I know, okay, that's it. And if anybody really runs over, here's what you'll hear. I mean, is that pathetic or what? But if I turn it upside down, it gongs forever. It doesn't sound like a school bell, but
I'm Jim Montalbano.
5 facts.
5 facts. Jim Montalbano, that's 1.
Oh, no.
I'm on the ballot as James B. Montalbano, official. My family moved to Southern Colorado in 1972, which in Colorado qualifies you as a native. Worked many years for a public entity Colorado City Metro District under the auspices of the board. I know what it's like to be an employee under the auspices of a board. I've worked with school boards. I worked directly with School District 70 on many projects. We shared many facilities, which I think is something we could do here as well. We shared gyms and we shared the field, and that worked out very well. I'm a rabid LP collector. For those of you who are too young, they're these vinyl discs with a spindle in the middle, with a needle on them. I'm a great bebop jazz lover and great jazz saxophonist, like a Sonny Rollins or a Charlie Bird Parker, who bring me to tears. In my former life, I was a PGA Class A golf pro for 17 years.
And our final fact is?
And our final fact is that I started subbing at the school soon after we moved here. And the great thing about a pre-K through 12 school is I have subbed pre-K, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, middle school, high school, English, math, science, in the office, cafeteria, and love it.
My name is Brandon Falk. I was born and raised here in Levita. And I went to college in Pueblo, got my degree in mathematics, moved back, I'm a general contractor now. I went to school at Levita all the way through 5th grade, and then I was homeschooled from 6th grade through graduation. But I did take one class at the school when I was a senior, and it was an English class. Did really good in it, but we had 4 English teachers that year, so it made it pretty interesting.
Yeah. All right, no, so here's how this is gonna go. Oh, no, there is one thing. And, let me just look at my list. Kelly, so I'm gonna read, Kelly's answer to this question. Kelly, huh? Say it.
Bjorn.
Bjorn, okay. Who would have been here, but it's parents' night for her daughter's volleyball team. So she regrets her absence. My husband and I were married 16 years ago on top of a glacier in Alaska. We are ranchers here in Warfano County, where we raise hay, cattle, pigs, goats, and 1,200 laying eggs. No, hens. The hens do the laying of the eggs. We have 3 children who participate in volleyball, football, basketball, and baseball, along with 4-H, FFA, Knowledge Bowl, and Rotary. Fact 3, I graduated from the University of Colorado Boulder and worked for the Colorado Division of Wildlife as a biologist tech. I have run 2 200-mile relay races, one on the California coastline and one here in Colorado. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. This fact 5. All right.
The question was interesting facts, so I stayed away from the school stuff. Physically, the hardest thing I've ever done was climb Mount Kilimanjaro. One of my favorite jobs was flagging for an aircraft duster, and that's a whole story by itself. Emotionally, the hardest thing for me was when my father died. I love to hike and go on adventurous, physically challenging vacations. And if I had endless amounts of money, I would attend every Broadway show in New York that I could.
And you've made a dent in it.
I have.
So Aaron Walters is the next candidate who is not here. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry I couldn't be here. For one interesting fact is I'm finally a COVID survivor, just getting over it. I'm a graduate of Levita School and have made Levita my home ever since then. I am an avid fisherman and outdoorsman. I have 4 beautiful kids and the best wife anyone could ask for. There we go. Okay.
Is there anybody else in here? My name is Lori Epping, and one fact would be that I was a pioneer in volleyball. I was one of the first women to get a 4-year athletic scholarship to play at Colorado State. Way back when Title IX. I have a master's in education administration. I was a principal at Levita Schools. I was one of the first women to be a chief appraiser in real estate.
Can you talk a lot? You were the first woman to.
To be a real estate appraiser.
There we go.
And also I was picked by the commissioner of the state of Colorado to be on their state review board for schools that were underperforming. So I worked as a contractor for them, and like I said, I reviewed a lot of schools that were on the clock, basically. So if they didn't improve, then we said, fire their superintendent, fire their principals, or shut down the school. So it was very interesting, but also a lot of responsibility. Thank you.
Okay.
Cheryl Wilbur, back one. Married to Harold. I've lived here for about 10 years. I came from Phoenix, Arizona. Brought 2 of 3 of my kids with me. Tiffany, my daughter-in-law. Tiffany wants to have her kids in school. She doesn't want to homeschool. So that was part of my motivation, is to make sure that my grandkids have a safe place, a good place to go to school, that we don't have to worry about. I used to want to get a shirt that said "one goat away from the crazy goat lady," but not past that. So, and I love animals and being outside hiking, and I love living here. This is the most beautiful, beautiful place in the world.
Hi everyone, my name is Tiffany Lard. I'm a mother of 4 young kids, and I homeschool the 2 oldest. I'm also a business owner. I moved to Colorado.
Can people hear her in the back?
Yes.
You can. Okay, good.
I moved to Colorado 14 years ago. I got a job training courses up at a private ranch. I drove my mother-in-law here shortly after that. I love to travel. I also have a great fear of speaking in front of people. So the last fact would be I'm a minimalist. I love getting rid of things. It gives me some strange happiness, though I do get attached to some things. I then am very happy to get rid of them 6 months later. So.
All right, I'm Anthony Massington, but you can call me Tony. The Anthony's on the ballot. I'll do the basic facts, now I'll do the interesting facts because that was the question. Basic facts, my family's been in Levita for 100 years, although I've only lived here for 7. Interesting but basic fact, Charlie of Charlie's Cash and Carry was my great uncle, so that's a relationship there in town. My father was a school superintendent his whole life. Well, not his whole life, that'd be weird. He's a school superintendent his whole professional life of small Colorado school districts, except for a 3-year stint in rural Alaska, which is where I started elementary school. Some more interesting facts about me. I've been in a real life train robbery. You could guess whether I was a robber or just a passenger. I've been kidnapped. Don't worry, they got me back. I was once present for, well, I showed up to work at the morgue one day because my job was helping to crack open a skull that contained the oldest preserved brain in Europe, which was 2,400 years old. Started elementary school in Naknek, Alaska, as I said, and maybe as a relief to everybody, my name is already on a tombstone in the cemetery. So have to imagine what it's gonna like in the end.
All right. And lastly, Annalie Vicky, her 5 facts are: I dropped out of school in 9th grade, but graduated summa cum laude from CU Boulder, proving how good Levita Elementary School is. I'm an expert at vehicle identification. There is virtually no car that I could not identify by its headlights alone. I was the manager of a bar when I was 16. I don't know that I would have included that, but anyway. I'm pretty good at playing the piano and the saxophone, and I'm a former hospice social worker where I learned a lot about life. So, anyway, interesting crew that we have here. All right, so since we started on this end, now we're gonna start, Tony, we're gonna start with you and come down this way. So the question that they'll all be answering is, what is one aspect of education in our rural town that is of most interest to you or that you most want to focus on?
So I think rural towns have a lot of really interesting opportunities educationally that city schools don't have, and I mean vice versa, but you can always like take the rural kid to the city, but you can't take the rural out of the rural kid, you know. So I think we start with an advantage to a certain degree. I say that as a kid from a small Colorado town that's the same size as La Veta as well. So I identify as the rural kid. The big thing I'm really interested in though is the aspect of education here is that breadth of education that we can offer, especially with the new school building coming online, is to try to get kids here to, nobody knows what they don't know. And I want to see kids introduced to all sorts of opportunities, jobs, occupations, thoughts in life that they wouldn't maybe naturally have, so that they can find out those things that really motivate them and move them, so that they can go away and they can come back and improve the town, or they can improve wherever they are.
Hey, nice timing. Okay, I was just about to hit that, Bill. All right.
I am very interested in raising up and helping train up very well-rounded kids. But of all the aspects, I would have to say that the moral aspect is the most important to me, because I would like to see kids with strong character and good morals that go out in life, who are kind and compassionate and empathetic, and show mercy and grace to other kids and other people, who can listen and respect other people who don't necessarily agree with them or they don't necessarily agree with. So overall, I would have to say the moral aspect, though I don't want to sacrifice the other aspects at that cost, if that makes sense. Well-rounded with emphasis on good character.
Okay.
Oh, I come from the big city. 2,000 kids in my graduating class. I am so excited to be here and have the grandkids here because the individualized attention has got to be great. I know I got lost in the cracks. My senior year, I just kind of quit going because it was just a waste of time. Got my GED and carried on, but I don't want to see any kids, even in a small school, kids could get lost, get looked over. So I want all kids to have that specialized attention. I want them to learn to take care of each other also. And the good character is very important. I mean, people that have good character in business go far. People that have good character in town go far. I think that's more, I mean, it's just, that's the number one.
I think really, when I was at La Veta schools, I really noticed that all the kids played sports, right? Everybody had to go out for football or volleyball or basketball, because otherwise it wouldn't be a team. Isn't that why we reduced it from 12 to 6 or 8 now? So I really enjoyed that part of La Veta, and I continue to love that. What I really want to see is all students having equal access to all curricula. So there's not just honors, chemistry. Everybody can take honors chemistry or some form of it. So I would like to see that equal access for all students. Just to continue on, La Veta is a great school. There's great teachers, and we need to continue that. And I think allowing students to push through some areas that maybe they wouldn't have that opportunity. Like I said, some kind of honors, not calling it honors, but calling it something like, I don't know if it's geometry, that somebody couldn't really need, that they could go into that class. So just equal access for all students, I think is really important.
You know what, I'm going to ask you all, I think it's going to be easier maybe if I read the ones afterwards, versus in between.
Yeah, totally up to you.
Yeah.
I forgot to introduce myself earlier, sorry. I'm Peggy Arnold Hubler.
She wanted to tell us about that climb.
Part of the joys of living in a small rural town is that students can participate in almost every activity, whether they have skills or not, or abilities. I mean, we have a lot of students that participate in many, many different activities. And through the years, we have seen things come and go. The science department or the science club with Pat was live and well. At one time, we had the best jazz band in the state. And so we see things come and we see things go. Part of the joy of being in this school is that kids can participate. On the other flip side of that is that sometimes we just can't have, we don't have the resources or the personnel to reach every kid that might have an interest in something. We can't find how to figure that out. So my hope is maybe that we could reach out to community members. We've tried this before, we've done it before. We've had people come into the schools and do programs in the science department and the history department, and maybe we need to revisit that. We have expertise sitting in this room right here, a lot of it. I can start naming people who have skills in areas. Who knew that you could play the saxophone? Trust me, I'm gonna tap in on that one, okay? So I
play his record.
we all have a story, and I think we really need to tap into people that have stories so that they can help reach kids and do things for our students.
I'm a big fan of the fundamentals and the foundation that school and education can provide. There's kids that are going to college and they're getting scholarships and they don't even really know how to read. So I think that it's really important for kids to learn basics, and get really strong basics, reading, writing, arithmetic, sciences, their history, being aware of your history. You know, those who can't remember their history are condemned to repeat it. And so I'd like to see those kinds of things happen. I think vocabulary is really important. Intelligence can be measured by the amount of words that you know the definition to. Being able to spell and know a lot of words, it helps you a lot in life. And I think that that's maybe one of the bigger responsibilities that the school has to provide to their children.
Well, I'm really happy to see the new school devote such a large space to career and technical education. I think the skills taught there are going to help to bring some of these, our best student citizens, to come back to our community and contribute to our community. I see Levita as has a great spirit of community. I think we need to encourage programs where we have our kids out in businesses and the nonprofits in this community, learning how things work hands-on. And I think we can coordinate that with our local businesses. I think our FFA program is a great example of a program that works very well. I think Veta Schools has a great FFA program. I'm really proud that they provide funding and resources for that program. And Miss Hadassah Graham does an incredible job teaching that program. One thing we are in a,
Last one.
oh, last one. We are in a small, landlocked community. I think it's important to expose these kids to the big world out there, let them know that there is a rest of the world out there.
You're done.
I know. I'm so sorry.
No, I believe in exposure, because I found in my own life that what brought me to what I wanted to do in life was being exposed to it. And in this community, which is awesome, I love being here. The one thing that it doesn't have a lot of is exposure. They're exposed to things that make this community relevant for themselves. but finding ways to expose them to other things gives them their life and gives them their passion for doing things. And if there's a way to do that in this community, that's what I would like to do, is exposure and hard work. Because one thing this community does is there's a lot of hard workers out here. And if we can apply that to, well, you can apply that to anything, basically. And that's what I learned as a person in sports, that I may be at this level now, but if I work hard, I'll be over here. And if we can teach that to kids, it's not about failure, it's about hard work, and that gives them success.
This is Kelly's reply to that. I believe in preparing our students to go to college, enrolling in a trade school, or entering the workforce with as many educational opportunities and even college courses to prepare them for the real world. This is critical. I would like to see us expand our vocational training and provide as many as possible learning opportunities. One area I believe is important is exposing our students to a wide range of careers that are in high demand in rural areas. One way to attain this goal is providing work studies with our local professionals where students can see firsthand if they are interested in that career path. So that was Kelly. Aaron, rural schools offer more to this county than most city schools. We have kids that get all sorts of experiences, driving at a very young age, farm equipment and trucks, horses, dirt bikes and such, working on equipment, helping mom can vegetables and work in the garden, or parents hunt and butcher animals. We have some of the most valuable skills taught living a rural life, which stands to argue cookie cutter school teachings are not for everyone. There are numerous schools in Colorado that are preparing kids for jobs such as these: truck drivers, farmers, ranchers. So for some kids, they should have all other means of getting a diploma. Some kids can sit in a room and learn all day, some kids can't. Times are changing. Technology, values, and workforce. This is why we just can't keep doing the same things over and over. We must adapt and change. And Anna Lee is focusing on opportunities for students while respecting that part of rural living is knowing that we don't have city availability and that we are willing to trade that for the quality of life here. Providing opportunities for career and tech ed that will help our high schoolers jump into life if they choose to do so, while also providing what is necessary to prepare for those who choose to attend college. It's also extremely important to me to be preparing kids both in middle and high school with life skills, such as budgeting and cooking, etc. So those are those. All right. Second question is, what do you see as the greatest opportunities and challenges of having a brand new school? And now we're going to cut right, and Peggy, you're going to start, and then we're going to flip around and then the floor.
If you haven't taken a tour of the new school, please take advantage of it. Gay does give tours on Tuesdays. It's spectacular, and the opportunities are going to be numerous for our students. Oh,
May
sorry.
I interrupt, sir? All the candidates are invited at 4 o'clock on Monday with the school, with the present school board.
So did you all hear that? Monday at 4, a tour for any candidates who wish it.
Wear with closed-toed shoes.
Spoken from.
Have you done it?
Very
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
All right.
All right. The challenges, actually, one of them for me is that I have always had free reign of the school and walked in wherever I wanted to walk. And that's going to change. And I think that's going to be difficult for parents and everyone. There's going to be a real safety net to get into the school and be held accountable while you're there. And so that's, as silly as it sounds, I think it's going to take a little while for some of us to learn that. The other challenge that I think that we need to talk about is that, and I'm as guilty as the next person, I think we need to figure out a way to get community members back involved in the school. In past years, you know, the school was the center of the community. And now it's changed. A lot of people that have moved into the community don't have any contact with school kids or the parents. And so I think we need to figure out some way to engage the community members that aren't normally going to be attending musical events or concerts or sporting events or any other thing like that, to figure out a way to get them to come and engage with reading with students or teaching a class. Or again, I want the teachers and I want professionals involved in their lives.
I think one of the greatest opportunities for the new school is going to be the fact that it's all in one place. Everybody's going to be able to just go to school, they'll be able to watch the football field. When I was in high school in football, there weren't bathrooms, there weren't locker rooms, we had to get dressed and then ride down the bus in all of our pads and then go back. So I think that it all being in one place without a main city street running right through it, which has caused a lot of hassles, is going to be a really good convenience to everybody. One of the challenges is I think going to be getting into it. You know, we had a good talk tonight about how many of the obstacles still in the path, and I think that a lot of the challenges are going to be just trying to get those obstacles out of the way and get into the new school and get everything, all the new pieces and parts set up for them.
Well, I think we've taken advantage of one of the greatest opportunities, and that's building a new school. I think the taxpayers were very, very wise, take advantage of a BEST grant where we would not have the opportunity to build this school otherwise. We just wouldn't be able to afford it. So that opportunity was a great thing to take advantage of. And thank you, everyone involved. I think the new school tells families that we're relocating to our district, that we're vested in the future of our children. I think it tells prospective new teachers the same thing. I think these new families and young teachers bring a lot of creative energy and creative ideas and fresh perspectives to the community. And I think that's wonderful. I think one of the biggest challenges is going to be moving mid-year. That's going to be an interesting challenge. The other challenge, I think, I know we have 4 years for a sidewalk, but for these kids who need to bike and walk to school, it's something that the new board is going to have to visit very quickly.
I think the thing that I'm most proud of is that the school that we had that used to exist and now the new one gives the students a chance to see what they're going to face if they do go out into the world and don't just stay in a small community. You want to give them that opportunity. I mean, I came from California originally, and we had 50 people in a class. Okay, so I mean, this is like heaven when you go to a classroom here. But what's important, I believe, that all students should be exposed to the outer world. And that way, if they do want to go there, they can be successful. And that's really important because you're coming from a very small community, which I'm glad I'm living here now. But I was exposed to so many things that were positive in a bigger community. So for me, exposure, again, for kids to not only be exposed to multiple careers, but also that there's a big world out there and they can be successful in that as well. Because I don't think everybody always understands that when they're coming from a small community. It scares them, you know, that's just a normal feeling that they're going off to college, they don't know anything about it, whatever. And if they get the exposure beforehand, then they're not going to be so frightened. So that's what's important to me about it.
So I'll start, I think, with maybe one of the biggest challenges of the school, besides the short-term challenges of getting settled in and things that are supposed to work are broken and just trying to figure out how everything works. One of the biggest challenges of the school is now very much going to be its own campus. And that way that it presents a challenge where it's going to be more and more if communication between the school and the community isn't robust and continuous. It's going to be more and more like, we don't know what they're doing down there. And I don't want to see that happen. So that communication challenge is something that the board needs to rise to, and the teachers and the administration and students themselves. So I think that's going to be the biggest challenge. But what a tremendous site. It's so exciting to see that space. It's that enormous atrium area, cafeteria area is such a creative space. I can't wait to see how the students colonize that and make it their own. I am in love with Miss Graham's new vocational shop down there. I want to use the toys that she's got in there. And I think the new athletic field and the athletic facilities are great. I mean, you've got a track now. It's beautiful. So I think, the opportunities are going to be fantastic as long as we meet that challenge of communication and make it not that place down there, but still in the heart of the community.
I think some of the biggest opportunities are just the fact that there's going to be so much excitement, at least for this new interval of time between students and faculty, to really go into this campus that no student has been in before, no teacher has been in before. And I think that this is going to provide an opportunity for our students to really feel ownership and hopefully pride. And I'm really hoping that this can kind of foster in a new generation or, just period of love for school and love for learning, and just really refresh that excitement. I think the opportunity for the room for growth as families look at moving into this community. I love that when you're driving in from the highway, you can see this big, beautiful school that just shows that we do love our kids and that we do want what's best for them. And I honestly think the biggest challenge, as I was thinking about all the things that we could run into, the biggest challenge is going to be the one that we don't see coming. And so I'm very thankful that we have so many people with so many perspectives that can bring so much foresight to the table already. And I feel like our students are in good hands already.
A new school. It's going to attract lots of families, lots more students, we're going to need more teachers, and that's the good and the bad. I'm excited. I think the kids are super excited. And it is a beautiful school, and I just pray that we can use it to its fullest potential, that we can get our money's worth out of it, that we can figure out a way to, there's still going to be more expenses coming. I mean, the football game the other night was awesome. The stands were packed, the parking lot was packed. We need more parking already. Anyway, so I'm excited. I just think that there's going to be a lot of pluses, a lot of minuses, a lot of stuff to work through, but it'll happen.
So some opportunities, I think teachers will be more attracted to come to our town because we do have a new school. And I think it was very well thought out. I think a lot of the Title I students are going to have opportunities that they didn't have in the past when I used to work at the school. Safety for students is huge. I remember as a principal at the Levita schools, the kids would have to walk across an actual street. And that is really a huge safety issue when you're a principal. And, I've been a principal of 375 kids, and to think about having to cross the street during the day would just drive me nuts. Thank goodness Levita only has 200 plus kids. I think there's opportunities for garden clubs. There's land. I think farming is really something that needs to be addressed too. I think that's one of the opportunities. Also, having a closed campus. I know that that's probably something that the school's going to have to decide. When I was a principal at Levita, some of the kids would go off campus and do things that they shouldn't do, and I won't go into those. But I do know that was an opportunity that probably shouldn't have been there, but I think now that the school is self-contained and it's a wonderful school, it's a great space. And I think you mentioned in the atrium area, those kids are gonna learn to use that space as theirs. So they'll be more apt to use it and not go off campus. Some of the challenges, I think, is attracting new teachers means housing for teachers. That's always been an issue. Even when I got here, thank goodness I had a rental that somebody let me use. One of the challenges, I think, is that we're not addressing some of the kids and a lot of kids, which you know very well, are theater kids. We don't have a space for that, and in the new school either. So I'm worried about that just a little bit. I think there's probably more kids that would want to do that than what we think. And then I am a little bit challenged by the collaboration with the town. I still feel like there's this massive gap and we need to close it. Collaboration is important.
Okay. All right, this is Aaron. We have a great opportunity with this new school, and like I stated in my second comment, we need to search out new opportunities to keep kids involved in school, keep the kids safe, use all the new resources for advancement, new programs combined with other districts, and use all our resources together. From Kelly, one challenge I see in moving to the new campus mid-year is moving to the new campus mid-year, as they will need to adapt to new learning environments in a short amount of time. While I can see this causing some distractions, I'm confident after this short transition period, I foresee positive advantages. I feel school spirit will be at an all-time high and something we can build on to become the new normal for our faculty, students, and our community as a whole. Lastly, the additional classrooms, dedicated study areas, state-of-the-art technology, innovative ag workshop, and so many more improvements will enhance the teaching environment and expand our students' learning. Lastly, from Anna Lee, the opportunities are abundant. The functionality, efficiency, and technology offered by the new building will create a smoother environment for both students and staff. The new building will also create better opportunities for career and tech ed, which is one of my main focuses. The only significant challenge I foresee will be the general adaptation to change. This always takes a little time. Okay, the last question is your thoughts on keeping our teaching staff strong and to attract and keep new good teachers. And we are going to start with Laura and go that way. Lauren.
Retaining and attracting teachers is always a problem. I've worked in about 4 different districts. That's always an issue. You know, you think you have a good one on the hook and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But I think, like I said before, having a very good school that has, you know, state-of-the-art everything. The science, I used to teach science, so I loved what they're doing in the science rooms. I think it's going to really attract teachers. To retain them, I believe strongly that teachers are underpaid. In fact, Colorado is probably one of the worst in the states. That has to stop. I mean, we're going to have to figure out a way to be able to pay our teachers. I think that's number one. If you look, like I said, if you look in the 50 states, you'll see that we're really low. Really low. Yeah, thank you. I'm nervous. Sorry. But anyways, so I think that's going to be something we have to address, especially in rural areas where housing is tough. And, you know, moving from a larger city to a smaller town, typically you know, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of work. But I think we have a great community. I think that's hands down. I think there's a lot of collaboration. I think Bree or Dr. Jones now has done a lot of work with that and really made a cohesive staff. So I think that's going to be important. Thank you.
I agree. I think salary is going to be very important, especially living in this town. I'm thinking, I came from West Cliff, so we used to drive by Merrill all the time, where they have actual housing on campus for teachers. And I'm thinking that might be, I mean, if we can't afford to pay them more, maybe we could provide housing for them so that we can have them stay. What would be really great is to have our kids come back and be teachers here in this town where they have an actual connection. I would love to see that.
I think something we can do until salary gets figured out is really promote a very healthy and personal relationship between teachers. Because most of you can attest to this, good coworkers can make a job and bad coworkers can break a job. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And how many of you have done things for a lot less money than you would have liked to because you just loved it? And every teacher I know loves teaching kids. I have never personally met a teacher that's like, take it or leave it. So I think if we can really just work on having healthy communication between teacher and board and the principal and the whole chain up, where they feel comfortable taking issues to, and then maybe even promoting, you know, out of school activities where they can learn to have friendships with other teachers and really just establish personal relationships, because nobody wants to come to Levita and feel like, I'm the only person here. I don't know anybody. I'm new. I don't fit in anywhere. So that's just something that I see we could do in the short term, and then just really reach out and express appreciation to the teachers that are here.
Everybody's taking all my ideas. No, I mean, there's obviously the big challenges are housing, and the big challenges are salary. Still, the average Levita salary is $42,000 a year, because I did my little fact checking today. That's $20,000 a year less than the state average, and Colorado's 40th out of 50 states for average teaching salary. So there's a salary issue, but you can see the size of that salary issue. We've got so much money to go around. That's a big problem or a big issue that we can tackle, but it's going to take time, just like the housing issue. So in the meantime, let's make sure that the teaching environment, as Tiffany said so well, the teaching environment is someplace where you have real quality of life, where it's something that you want to be a part of, where you wake up in the morning and say, oh goody, I get to do this. And I know Tim and Molly probably do that every morning, get to wake up in the morning and say, wow, I get to do this. Now, especially having heard about how low their salary is, they're not going to disappear tomorrow to Denver or someplace. But the point is that we need to focus on fostering collegiality between the teachers themselves and the other staff and the administrative staff at the school. And it's already a really deeply collegial place, but that can be fostered by the board. The board can promote an environment of communication, of an environment where there is focus on quality of employment experience, and the board is by an extension the community. So the whole community, again, can focus on supporting the teachers. And we do a good job, and we just need to keep doing it and step up wherever we see an opportunity.
This is near and dear to me because I got into teaching because I was passionate about it. And most teachers, what they want is affirmation. You're doing a good job. You know, not always picking at the person. And I believe that for teachers, they need to know that they're worth it. They need thank yous. They need an understanding that they're working with all these different personalities that maybe somebody else in this room couldn't do. And it's a unique job. It's very unique. So for me, it's appreciation of teachers, it's making them feel heard and really listening to them, getting them together, listening to them talk about how they want something to go, because I don't think we always do that. And it's really, really important because it's not an easy job. People do it because their hearts are in it. So we need to respect their hearts about it. And more money does help.
Well, at this point, I just want to say what everybody else said,
Yes.
because, yeah, everybody has just hit it on the head. So I'm going to just thank the current teaching staff and what the school has gathered for teachers. I think it's probably one of the best rural staffs in Colorado, if not the rural school staffs, if not the best. And I think Dr. Jones does an incredible job in recruiting teachers. And I think the current and former boards of education have paid a lot of attention to that. I agree 100% on the housing problem, and it's just been exacerbated by the way housing costs have gone up. I think it's something we are definitely going to have to visit as a board. A way to find affordable housing, to work with the community, whether it's that or to create affordable housing. That is going to have to be visited. I think same thing everyone else has said. I think teachers, number one thing teachers are looking for is to be appreciated and supported by their superintendent and by their board of education. I think you have to make sure that that box is checked.
I think makes teachers strong is that they have that passion for those kids. And I think one of the things that makes it difficult for them is that it's difficult for the parents and the community to interact with the teachers in a positive manner. And not everybody is always taking the responsibility of what they're supposed to do. I mean, parents have their responsibilities, and if they are taking care of what they're supposed to do and working with the teacher, then the teacher has his or her ability to take care of the things that they need to take care of and their responsibilities that are for them. And another way that you can help to bring in stronger and attract teachers is to provide a way for them to get their teaching license, even having an education, but they may not have their teaching license coming out of school, and they can get it through the school system and become, basically like a student teacher through that system, and then be able to take vast amount of experience that they've had in life, come to this town, then convert over to become a teacher and pass that information on to the kids.
Because I really believe this. I sincerely feel that Dr. Jones and her administrative team and the teachers that we have currently do a remarkable job. I think that the administrative team with Dr. Jones hires and they keep good teachers. Bree has the ability to think outside the box in methods of filling vital positions and teaching assignments. I've watched it over and over and over. She has surrounded herself with a team that does their job and can carry on without pause when she is not on campus. That is how strong, efficient leaders lead. They allow those hired to do a job to do it. The challenge Levita has, and I want to say ditto to everything else everyone else has said, is that we need to figure out how to raise the salaries, and we have to find affordable housing and childcare for teachers. It is difficult at best to hire teachers who cannot afford to live here and support their families.
All right, well, thank you all, and here is Annalee's response to that question. This is the exact question and actual mission of the Levita School Foundation, of which I have been a board member since inception. Our research concluded that housing and childcare were the two major contributing factors to the challenge of teacher recruitment and retention. Opportunities for social interaction with others in a similar age cohort was another factor. The first two are solvable problems. Aaron Walters, It's very simply money. Why would we spend all of our very few county resources and state tax dollars in the tens of millions of dollars to pay teachers far too low a wage? We need to provide some kind of living assistance and allocate money to get good teachers here and keep good teachers. I believe teachers need to be held on review so we don't end up with high-paid bad teachers. And from Kelly. As a rural school, we often make our educators take on additional responsibilities. We need to be conscientious of these demands and added stress. This can hopefully be alleviated by providing additional support staff where needed and recruiting volunteers from our community while funding ways to let them all know they are appreciated, which will hopefully lead to retaining our teaching staff and faculty. One area I would like to focus on is increasing parent involvement in the school. We all want the very best experience for our children, and there are so many non-teaching areas where parents can add support to our teachers and students. Okay, I think that is all three of them. Thank you all for staying to your time. It's not easy to try and pour your heart out and all your thinking and very short little segments of time, but you did great. Thank you. So we now have 20 minutes for questions. If you ask a question, everybody will get the chance to answer. Not our three here, but four, but so any questions? Sir, you want to stand up so we can
just spent $43 million this year for a school. Are you gonna hold the contractor to the fire to complete the job without any extras? Because they're gonna be asking for more money. I've dealt with companies like this many times before. I'm sure there's gonna be cost overruns and there won't be sufficient money to complete the project. Gonna hold them to the contract.
We're gonna go down this way.
I would. That's a pretty easy answer, but yes, I would hold them to the contract.
Absolutely. I agree with that. That's something that's probably we're going to face.
Yeah, I would work as hard as I could to hold them, as tight as I could to the contract. Knowing that it's not necessarily going to be the easiest task, but also knowing that it's a very important task, knowing that since a lot of money had already been spent and they knew from the beginning everything that was involved and everything that was going to take it to today.
You know, Ron, I'm not sure I can say I can answer that question just now.
Okay.
I really don't. Costs have gone out of the roof in the last 6 months. And I think we just need to really take a solid, hard look at it before any one of us could commit to that statement. I don't know that I can tell you absolutely I would. I think.
Maybe I expand a little.
All right.
It was their dream. It was their dream of it was going to cost $43 million.
Whose dream?
G.E. Johnson.
Okay.
That's what they said it was going to cost.
Right.
As a contractor, I pre-order things. I make sure that I can meet those requirements.
You know what, we're going to stop this
Okay.
right here.
It's a debate.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
because it is
No.
great, and I hope everybody comes to school meetings to have
Yeah.
exactly these debates.
So my answer is, I do not know, Ron, to be honest with you. Okay, that's my answer.
Hi, one of the things I would like to see more of is transparency. I went to a meeting a month ago, and Bree brought up that there was a possibility of a bus that could be bought for $70,000. Everybody went ahead and just voted yes for it, and yet nobody asked the question. And this is what I would have asked, but I was sitting in the audience. How is our capital reserves and cost overruns are going to happen no matter what. I mean, I'm trying to build a stupid little garage on my property, and all I have now is a pad. And they've said it's gonna take a year and a half just to get the materials, and it may cost me twice as much. So I'm with Peggy here. I don't know if I could, because everything is so crazy right now in the construction business. However, I do believe that we need to really understand what those capital reserves are and what our budget is. And I believe that we can't just willy-nilly stamp something that somebody says, oh, we need a $70,000 bus for the kids, and go ahead and spend that money without knowing what our capital or overruns are going to be. So I would like to see more transparency, and I would like to see a lot more of us asking those questions, those hard questions.
My answer would be yes, as much as we possibly could. I mean, like you said, they bid it, they got it.
I would like to have everybody take a very close look at what's already been done as well, and see if there have been overruns in areas that maybe there shouldn't have been. Because I feel like they should be accountable if they bid this section of the job for this much money. And I know it's more of a whole bundle and umbrella, but if something went over or didn't go as planned, that maybe shouldn't have cost quite as much money, I think they need to be held responsible for the job that they did. And then also knowing that the cost of supplies is increasing. I would hear them out, but I would be skeptical and take my time knowing, or, you know, taking the time to research what it is they're suggesting it's going to cost over before agreeing to anything else.
Just having spoken to some of the supervisors and guys down on the site throughout different stages of this construction process, one thing that became clear is that actually we've avoided quite a lot of potential for cost overrun, because they did have foresight to pre-order a lot of the key materials, which is foresight and also partially just luck, but that a lot of the key materials came in before the shortages and the massive price hikes hit. And so I think our potential for cost overrun is much less than it might be, considering a project of this magnitude at this bizarre time in our history. Having said that, I also see them willing to make some concessions, and there's some give and take. The contract's the ideal, and I believe the contract is a thing that should be kept to, but the day-to-day realities of the site have a tendency to make certain parts of the contract fluid, and you move your resources to be used as best they can, given the situational nature of the site as you build it. So I know that's hedging things a little bit. Of course, I would hold them to the contract, but you also have to realize the reality as well.
Yeah. You guys are all, thank you for. We talk a lot about vocational stuff, academics, sports, just social, emotional, which is a huge spectrum. I know that you're a counselor and she there's a curriculum, just being part of the community member, I mean, just the last few months, I've kind of been that went to school, taking me something to talk and start crying about things. What are is there a place in school environment to address? There's no therapist in town, there's no place to go to. The Department of Social Services is the best. What do you do with this? And yeah.
We're starting down here again.
Huh?
Are we going to start down here and move back? Okay. I think that's one of those opportunities for this bridge building between, or bridge maintaining between school and community. So I think that kind of support network really does have to be a community support network, as well as the school. All the teachers in my experience, who I know and have spoken to, this is something very dear and close to them, and it's something they do as good teachers and as good staff, is keep an eye on this and monitoring this. But I think if there's opportunities for town to, not town as the town board, but as the community to come alongside the school and kind of provide complementary support and services through extracurricular activities, through extracurricular programs, maybe some mentoring programs, that sort of thing, so that the whole burden on maintaining sort of whole personness of the students isn't entirely put on the school down in that box down there. So, you know, these after school programs, Tanya, I know that's something that's really near and dear to your heart that you've really done a lot of work on personally in the community. You know, church programs, the Baptist church across the street from the library has run King's Kids for years and years and years. They've been very well integrated in a complementary way. If you just look at Pastor Fred's involvement with the school in a supporting way. I think we do a good job. I think we could do better. I know that there's a lot of kids in tough situations within this community. There's statistics about poverty line and all that sort of stuff. But I do think this is one of those opportunities where like a board particularly is in a good position to be a bridge builder between the school and the rest of the community to make sure that people who want and can help can help.
I mean,
Sorry.
that's a great answer. I think that it can't just be on the school, but also these kids obviously don't feel like they can go to parents or adult figures in their immediate life, right? So you're seeing the need for it. And I do think it's something that should be addressed and something that we should each carry forward as we are trying to serve the community and learn how to better serve our children. I think that needs to be a topic we can all open conversation and be able to talk with other community members and hear your guys' ideas, because not any one of us is going to have the right answer, but all together we can have some pretty good answers to hopefully help our kids.
So maybe it wasn't a fair
Yeah.
question.
No, I think it's a great question.
I agree very much with both. But I also think we need to help families. I mean, yeah, the students need help, but those students are needing help because we have broken families. Maybe there's something we can do as a community to help some of the broken families, and especially single parents and people like that just need help coping with life. And I know stress is, I mean, the stress that our kids are facing today is so much more than we could even dream of. It's amazing. So I think we need to really seriously look into that.
So I worked in New Mexico and in a couple of districts that, for instance, I worked on a Pueblo. And I also worked in a town that had a lot of opioid addiction. And a lot of grandparents were raising the kids because the parents were not available. So what I developed as a principal is I put in a 0-hour period where we had an SEL program. So it's social emotional learning program. It's a curriculum. So it was 20 to 30 minutes in the morning, and the teacher would give them a curriculum, and they sat in circles. They'd have a brief circle if they wanted, whatever they needed. They have a circle, and they would talk about these issues. And it set the day, and you know, they gave each other hugs if they needed it, or whatnot. But SEL is huge. It's huge. If a kid has had huge traumatic issues in their life at home, and they come in and they sit down and say, okay, we're going to learn math right now. They can't do it. They can't sit. Their brain is way back here in the dinosaur area of your brain, and they turn off and they can't learn. So SEL is huge. And I know Bree has some in the schedule. I don't know what it is, the first hour. I think she has some time built in. And I think that's a really good time to have an SEL program. So I'm hoping that still continues.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's a tough question. It's a really difficult one because there are so many layers to it. We do have experts. We have counselors in town that maybe we need to, get information from them. I was a counselor for years at the school system. I'm not sure what the best way for the board to take that on would be. Maybe it is a discussion with administration and teachers to sit down and say, what can we do to help support you and the students? I have sat at the theater and nurtured kids, just like you have sat and nurtured kids in your situation. I'm sure Bruce has done it on the soccer field. I'm sure Molly and Tim do it every single day. So maybe we just need to figure out a way to coordinate and to talk and communicate. And maybe we just aren't aware of what you're aware of. Maybe that needs to be, you know, twofold. We need to talk to each other about that, so we can, you know, figure out what the best solution might be. It's a great question. It's a real question.
Yeah, you know, growing up is tough, and being an adult, it's not a whole
tougher.
lot easier, right? So that, I agree that that is a good question, and it's a difficult question, because it takes into account a lot of different responsibility factors that go far beyond the school. However, I do agree that there needs to be people that are within the school that are knowledgeable and capable of handling as much of those situations as possible, and working with the parents and the families and the community in order to make it a little bit easier and a little bit better. You know?
I think Levita schools, what I see has expanded their social emotional learning quite a bit. I think all the teachers have had more training. The addition of Deanna Freeze has been a wonderful addition. She's very good at what she does. I know it's something that Mr. Griffin deals with the majority of his day. From what I see, it's what administrators deal with for a good portion of their day. I'm glad to see that they have expanded early childhood education to 0 to 8. I know there are plans to start visiting parents in the community, working with those parents along with children. I think that's so important. We have to find a way to get parents involved, and even in difficult families, we have to find a way to be able to communicate with those parents. They're usually the biggest part of the problem. So.
This is something I feel strongly about as well. When kids have underprivileged lives and go through a lot of stress, what happens is what Lori talked about, which is they operate out of this part of the brain. And so you have to identify what causes that person to flip out. And that takes a team. That's not just one person. That's a counselor. That's the teachers that student is dealing with. And they all get together and they talk about what it is that sets that kid off. And they avoid that. They don't do that. But they do find ways to connect to that person. And the child ends up feeling like they're seen. Because, boy, I've had some experiences with kids that would set your hair on fire. But ultimately, if you could see the kid and understand what's setting them off, what's reminding them of the things that say to them they're not worthy, they're not good enough, so they're going to go out there and act out. So it's something that demands training and it demands time. And it's tough to do in a school situation, but it's all worth it because you see this big transformation happen because you've got all these teammates working together on that kid and knowing what's setting them off. So I think it's a great question too, because there's no school that doesn't deal with that.
All righty, we have time for one more question. Yes?
In today's world, our educational systems are getting very politicized. School boards are getting cut between politicians and teachers are experiencing tremendous pressures because they have expertise in the classrooms that oftentimes school board members don't. Politicians oftentimes. Stretch to say so.
And so your
Anyway,
question is?
The question is, what is the importance that you give to historical and social issues in the classroom and the possibility of social reform? I mean, curriculum reform. Let me make a quick statement that I went through 13 years of education in this county. I never learned about level. I never learned about labor history. I didn't learn about Colorado history, that how Native people's lands were taken.
So that's an example of what you're talking about?
Yes, I did not hear a thing about, learn a thing about the important women in history.
You all get a question out of that? Can you
Yes.
take
what's
that?
your
All right,
importance
you're
that you
shaking
give-
your head, so I'm going to start with you and go around. And we're going to be fast with these answers.
I'll try.
Yeah, I know.
So I think maybe you're alluding a little bit to critical race theory, maybe a little bit. Critical race theory and sort of, like I learned, about the Jews and Hitler and Nazis and whatnot, and what our curriculum teaches kids and where's the teacher's role. I think the biggest thing we need to do to kids, in answer to your question, is teach them about bias, okay? How to read something and see where the bias is, okay? Critical thinking skills. Reading and writing is huge. I mean, it's the number one thing we need to teach kids, but we also need to teach them how to critically read and how to critically look at something and see the bias in how it's written. I think a lot of our textbooks, I know when I was going, I'm 62 years old, so I know there was a lot of bias there. So as the role of a teacher has to be in the middle. And they have to realize that there is bias. And so when you teach kids that, you're teaching them exponentially. I think that's the key, right?
I believe that history should be taught. I wasn't taught history. I think it was just kind of past junior high, it was just kind of going over it, not too big of a deal. I think history is very important. I think it's important that it's taught as close to factual as possible. And I think as far as bias, I think that teaching children to look at the color of another child and judging that child is wrong. I think we should go back, if you want to teach critical race or whatever it is, if you want to teach kids about how to treat race, we should just show them Martin Luther King videos and let them watch them. The way he put it, judge a man by his character, not by his color.
I think that history needs to be taught, again, as close to factual as we're able to make it. And we should teach the good and the bad and everything in between. There's things that people should not be proud of, but I think that there's also been a lot of progress made. I do think exactly what you said about Martin Luther King. We should just teach people to see the value of life and the value of people's character, and really just look at people as individuals, because ultimately you can't hurt people, because every single person's an individual. If you looked at people with blonde hair, then you could break it down to blonde hair and blue eyes or green eyes or hazel eyes or brown eyes, and you can just keep going down, and that's just visible, and that's not even getting into the spiritual and the emotional of who people are. All unique. And so I think really we just need to really promote the character, and it comes back to strong character and good morals. Let's be decent people to each other, because we're all in this life together. We all have hurts, and we all have, our stuff, our issues. And so I just really want to see kids value each other.
I hold a doctorate in medieval studies, so in a way I'm kind of a professional historian. And I know that what we call history is a process, and that's what's really exciting about it. And so in those areas that are currently controversial, and history is always a phenomenally controversial subject, always, every generation wants to use history for their own ends. That's not necessarily always because there's ill will to begin with, but everybody wants to see it their own way. And where there are controversies in history and in the study of history and the interpretation and application of history, those controversies, I think, are what we should run to and embrace, because where that conversation is happening and is most heated, that's where the core of who we are right now, who we're working out who we are right now, that's where it is. And if we can combine that with what Lori was saying about giving them the tool set to understand bias and to evaluate sources of information, if we can embrace the challenging with a tool set to identify and understand bias and value sources of information, we have made real citizens. And we have really made a positive contribution to the future of our country.
Part of my job as a counselor when I was a counselor was perspective. Everybody comes in the room with a different perspective. I was also a history teacher, so history is important to me. It does tell us what we have to look out for and be aware of. I'm right there. I agree with Lori. You have to teach people about bias, and you also have to teach them about acceptance and listening skills. So for me, history is very important, and it's important how you present it. And you can't leave stuff out just because you have a particular perspective on it. You have to teach the whole spectrum.
No, I think this shows the importance of, you can't be a distraction, but I think we need to welcome community members sometimes into our classrooms. We have a crazy good history teacher, and there's a comma there, crazy good. Matthew Tate. I subbed in there this morning, so he has a stick that says, I teach hard history. I think you teach history with all its warts. And he does a very good job of that. And he's not afraid to bring up the issues in a very balanced way. And I think that's what you need. I think it's very important to have good teachers. Good teachers teach good history.
I also believe that history is a really important subject, and also a well-informed electorate is the best electorate. So if you can teach kids about all the different sides and just allow them to make the decisions for themselves, given the opportunity, usually they'll do a pretty good job of figuring out a lot of things on their own. So I think that the balance, and then also the as much history as possible, taking from people who have already there's some great speeches in the history of America given by some really wonderful and incredible men and women. And so exposing them to that and allowing them to think for themselves, I think would be a very valuable opportunity.
Molly and Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that this is the year that the state of Colorado is looking at the history curriculum. Am I correct with that? Adopt. So to answer your question, I think kind of what Jim said, the school board is going to be facing that directly head on this year with the state presenting, you know, the new curriculum and seeing what we're going to agree to or not agree to. What I don't want the board to do is to make a decision without facts. I want to make sure that we don't jump ahead and think that we're solving a problem that isn't there in our school system. But if people like you come to the school board and say, this is why it's important to me, and I'm sure that it is, or anyone else that has had any kind of need to express that, I think, again, communication is going to be the key, whether we accept or don't accept or change or don't change. We're going to have to listen to the teachers, the administrators, the community to make some firm decisions about some of that.
want you to know on my watch,
Kelly came in, if you want to let her talk.
I don't, can I, Kelly? I've read all of your answers.
Oh, thank you. I'm still enjoying
And we're ending.
Okay, well, thank you for letting me at least come and introduce myself. I'm Kelly Fiora, and sorry I had to miss the parents' night at volleyball, so I had to be there for my.
Your answers are very loaded.
Well, thank you. It was very hard to keep them so short, but thank you for reading.
You did, and so I'm glad you stood up. We've had some wonderful questions. I'm sure other of these candidates will share them with you, and but we are ending because it's 9:34.
Was
No,
Zoom recorded?
8:34.
Was Zoom recorded?
Yes, it is, Tom.
Okay, so you can
It's
watch
fine.
all of them.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, good night, and thank you all.
I'm impressed.